thank you all for being here. We are here once again to have another announcement to recognize Infrastructure Week in the United States. As most of you know, I started off Monday in Washington talking about it. Then we went to the Skaneateles water facility for the city. And today we're here to talk about potholes and to talk about how the announcements that I made earlier in the year, how we've been using data and the different technologies to make us more efficient and effective in how we fill potholes. So what you can see here is we have, since April, have filled 3,260 potholes. We know that because in the DuraPatcher trucks we have installed GPS systems, and every time the truck stops, it will count the number of times it stops and counts the DuraPatcher using it. So that is a data number that we can use. So instead of just responding to people who call or send emails and say, can you fill a pothole on Northcliffe, we are now able to go to Northcliffe and fill a pothole and then also fill the ones along the way that we have found. We have done this because we know that using our resources efficiently and effectively is the most important way to go about fixing our infrastructure. And so we are using the data that we have found with the GPS, in addition to using 2 DuraPatcher trucks to fill potholes. And of course we have our squid equipment that is going around the city and tracking different street qualities and potholes. And we will soon be able to share that data with the city as well. So I want to take this a moment to thank our DPW workers who do yeoman's work, particularly this time of year, in getting out and repairing some of the damage that our winter does, and also thank them for being flexible with us as we have implemented the new technology in these new systems. They have worked extremely hard and well with us to figure out how efficiently and effectively to implement these new systems and new technology along with the data. Again, with the goal being that we provide better service for the people of the city and a higher quality of infrastructure, and that we use our tools and techniques to be proactive, not just reactive. So we're going to show the DuraPatcher in use, if any of you would like to see that, but I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Are there any specific areas around here, neighborhoods like this, that are especially heavy in potholes?
They're all, unfortunately, all of them are heavy in potholes, and we're doing it across the city. And that's why we have the squid system driving across the city to map all of the roads. This year we were fortunate in that the state heard our calls for more money for road reconstruction and road work, so we were able to get some more money from the state, which we will be implementing in doing road reconstruction, but also utilizing some new technology that we believe will extend the life of our roads. Our next challenge as advocates is to say to both the federal and state officials, you know, roads are not just potholes. They're actually three-dimensional infrastructure. Underneath this road you have sewer lines, you have water lines, you have utility lines. And so if you can give us money so that when we open the roads, we can do the kind of maintenance necessary to do not just the top of the road, not just the potholes, but all of that underlying infrastructure, that will go a long way towards getting us to a state of good repair. Because right now, the way the funding works, if they just give us funding for roads, we can put down a beautiful mill and pave and full road reconstruction. And if a water main bursts underneath that, then we're going to have to cut in the road, fix that water main, and we have severely shortened the length or the life of that road by cutting into it.
So without this technology, would you have filled fewer potholes, and how many? I mean, how many more are you able to fill?
We think we would have filled fewer potholes, but well, there are a couple of things that this technology does. First is it gives us actual hard and fast data to show us how many potholes we are filling. So before, it was was the count that humans kept, and we all know, I know especially for me, there is such a thing as human error. But using this data and the GPS data and looking at the way that we deploy DuraPatchers has helped us fill a lot more potholes. And then when you combine it with the notifications that we have with our street, Syracuse line, city line, sending notifications off of Twitter and using all of that data so that we can implement all of that into a system. And then when you overlay that with what we're going to get with the squid, you're starting to see that we can use data proactively to be much more effective and efficient, so we can really drive those numbers up very high.
But you have no sense of whether it's 50% more or 10% more or anything like that?
We don't. It's just more.
When you talk about the future, I mean, is there ultimately, I mean, you got to do this every year. Is there ultimately something you can make roads out of, like that kind of thing that doesn't crack and...
Well, not here. You probably can't. Somebody maybe somewhere is looking at that, but when you have the kind of weather conditions that we have, and then you have the kind of snow and water that we have, the freeze and thaw cycle does tremendous damage to concrete and to asphalt. And that's primarily what what the problem is. But you also have tree roots, that will raise sidewalks as well. So what we're looking at is using data to show where can we use some less expensive technology instead of full road reconstruction to seal the roads. So instead of having a road that will maybe have to have a full reconstruction in the next 3 years, we can get an extra 5 years out of that. So that's stretching that money to go further. And again, that's part of why if we have more flexibility with the resources that we have, we can, once we open a road or to do a full road reconstruction, if we can do the water main and the sewer main and look at the utility line and work together with National Grid, then we can seal it up, and we know that that mile, that 2 miles, that 3 miles is going to be good for the foreseeable future.
And on the weather, just because we had a little bit mild of an upstate New York winter, did that have any effect on how many potholes you saw?
We always have too many potholes, and what we may consider a mild winter can actually exacerbate the issue of potholes because you have that thaw and freeze cycle, and that's what does damage. If you get water into a crack and then it freezes, that water expands, it makes the crack larger, and then it thaws and it melts, and then water gets in there again, and that's the freeze and thaw cycle is the single most destructive part of.
So maybe a little bit worse.
Could have been. It could have been.
Most of those pothole spills come from resident reports. I mean, what's the balance between trucks driving around and finding them, or people calling into city line?
Chris, I don't know the answer offhand, but what I do know is that we have spent a great deal of time this year looking at how to use our data objectively, so we're not just reacting, that we can be proactive in filling a pothole. So we absolutely want people to continue to call into us, but we also want a system where we can proactively go and find those potholes that maybe, aren't on a road as well traveled, or, for whatever reason get overlooked. And that's why we have the squid system driving around and objectively measuring that too, because there's some people who will call in and say, the pothole in front of my house is so big you could drown a Doberman in it. And when you go and look at it, how about that? I hope you guys got that on video. By the way, left-handed too. All right. That they will say that a pothole is very large in front of their house, and when we measure it, it is not as large as, say, a pothole on Hiawatha Boulevard. So the data gives us a way to objectively look at it, and then also overlay it with where the streets are highly traveled, when's the best time to shut down the street to repair those potholes, and also now looking at where we have done our test area for our water mains, to also use that too. Like, are we going to do more milling and paving downtown, and are there certain places where we have very leaky pipes that we should, when we open the street up, go in and fix those pipes as well? So what it is really, at its very basic level, is looking to use technology and data to drive smart decision making that will ultimately have our money go further.
How long did it take to fill the 32?
It's about 2 months, since April 1st, I believe. So we've been, yep.
And you got 2 DuraPatchers?
We got 2 DuraPatchers.
They filled all these potholes?
And they filled all these potholes. And they will continue to fill them all. Anybody else? All right. Thank you all very much. We'll go see why we came here.